Yo, what's going on, Epic 7 fam? I'm Sue, and this week we finally will be getting the Epic 7 Origin update. With it, they'll be giving everyone a limited 5-star hero selector, as well as a limited 5-star artifact selector. This video is a tier list that is going to be focused on those limited heroes in the selector that you can choose from to help you make the best decision possible. Before we jump into it, a couple of things I want to talk about. Number one, for the selectors, characters usually have to be older than 6 months, as well as have at least one rerun in order for them to be eligible for the hero selector ticket. That said, the Origin update seems to be bucking a lot of the traditional norms for Epic 7, so all limiteds may potentially be available, and as such, I'll be talking about Flan, Tori, and Senya in this video, even though they most likely might not be eligible. Again, better safe than sorry. It's only 3 extra heroes to talk about anyway. Number 2, the Origin update is accompanied by a new balance patch, new tweaks to PvP for the upcoming season, and a new piece of difficult PvE content in Trial of the Constellations. As such, I have taken these factors into consideration with my rankings, so some characters might appear higher than you might traditionally think they would be. Also keep in mind that since that's content that's not out that I haven't been able to play and test yet, there might be characters on this list that I have as a C tier that might actually be seen as necessary for that content and thus bump them way up the tier list. If that at all happens, please check for a pinned comment down below. I will kind of let you know if anything drastically changes with my opinions on the tier list after that new content is out. Anyways, let's jump into it and we'll explain the tiers, even though, well, I kind of already have them marked so you could kind of see it. First up, we have the S tier. This is characters that everyone should have access to, no matter what. Then I have a second tier here, which is characters that could be S, but are most likely A tier, and we'll talk about that when we get to those characters in a second. A tier are PvP relevant characters in the previous meta that just ended, the Spring 2025 meta, or they just have multiple use cases in a variety of game modes. B tier is one good use case, like I could think of one really strong reason why you'd want to take them, and otherwise they're not really spectacular. C is hard to recommend in most places. These are the ones I'd avoid unless you just don't have them for your collection, or you just really like their character design. And then here at the end, we have the 3 that I already mentioned, Flan, Tori, and Senya, that you can't choose, but if you could choose them, they'd all be S tier and everyone should have access to them. Alright, got it? Let's jump into it and we'll start off with Diene. Diene historically has been one of the strongest PvE characters in Epic 7. With the arrival of the Trial of Constellations game mode, I expect her to have some viability there as well. There's nearly no PvE content in the game that Diene doesn't provide some value to. On top of that, her most recent buffs have made her a solid choice in PvP game modes, especially if you are a player that lacks Empyrean Illinap. Diene is just a character that I feel almost every single Epic 7 player can get some value out of, which is why she lands here in the S tier. After Diene, we come to Laia. In case you missed Laia a few weeks back on her first rerun, this is your chance yet again to pick her up. Laia is, in my opinion, a design mistake because she's an insane support, a cleanser, best in class cleanser I might add, and a hard carry all rolled into one package for PvP. In tandem with her limited artifact Sweet Miracle, which you should get if you don't actually have already, she is a nearly uncontrollable support that every player should have as a fallback option. Her skill 1 being a guaranteed dual attack is historically one of the strongest skills in all of PvE. Her skill cooldown reduction on skill 2 synergizes incredibly well, by the way, with Last Rider Crow, who is one of last season's highest win rate heroes. She also synergizes with Sylvan Sage Vivian, who is gaining a buff in this Origin update. All 3 of those characters together can allow you to build a powerful tempo-based team composition that I think will only continue to appreciate and value over time. Now, after we talk about Diene and Laia, we have this in-between tier here that I have as could be S, but most likely A, and that contains Landy and Seaside Bellona. And I'll try to explain my case for why I think these characters might secretly be S tier with this Origin patch that is dropping, but if you don't believe me, then just consider them part of the A tier. First up, let's talk about Landy. Some of you veterans out there may be surprised to see that I have Landy so high up on this tier list. I mean, after all, she's been pretty bad in PvP for a while, despite being the queen of World Arena for nearly 2 years back in the day. The thing that most players forget though about Landy is that, like Diene, she is historically one of the strongest PvE characters in all of Epic 7 history. She's excellent in Abyss, Advent, Expeditions, and more. With Trial of the Constellations on the horizon, I have a very hard time seeing Landy not making an impact. And this is before we talk about her artifact, Wall of Order, getting a buff in that same patch. This is going to give her greater attack buff, as well as stealth. Even if this character ends up as just a niche PvP pick, I still think she potentially deserves the S rank spot just for her PvE viability alone. Speaking of PvE viability, we move on now to Seaside Bellona. SSB has always been one of the best PvE heroes in E7 since her debut back in 2019 as the game's first summer limited hero. She is a staple of many Wyvern teams and also has use cases in Abyss, Advent, and Ancient Inheritance. With the changes she'll be receiving in the Origin update, along with the fact that PvP's current meta has no really strong blue attack-based DPS outside of Fene, the stage is set for SSB to potentially make a huge comeback in the turn 2 playstyle. Her incredible PvE usage alone would land her in the A rank in my opinion, but the possible buffs making her a meta-relevant hero in PvP is why she lands in this in-between S or A tier. Now let's move on to the A tier. These are PvP relevant characters, to various different degrees, or characters that have multiple use cases. First up, let's start with Blooming Lidica. Lidica has seen a rise in play due to being a valuable 4th pick for cleavers in World Arena. Previously, players would take things like Requiem Rwana or ML Ludwig after locking up turn 1 with their first 3 picks, with things like Zio, Elagos, Veronica, and more. However, with Abyssal Yufine being a really common pick as of late, and players not being able to afford the Bellion pre-ban as much, Blooming Lidica has entered as a solid option in that same slot. You simply land a debuff with an opener of your choice, proc Blooming Lidica's passive, and watch her get to work with her skill 3 to kill a specific hero. After that, you just soul burn to stun lock stragglers until you win the game. With her red version getting a buff in the same patch, I can see the two of them working together spectacularly well together for high-speed players in PvP. Next up, we have Frida. Frida is primarily used as a support for cleave teams that don't want to have to worry about the Bellion pre-ban, since Frida's passive guarantees your front slot gets 1 free soul burn even if you have no souls. This obviously enables some of the most powerful moves in the game, such as New Moon Luna's skill 3, Successor Teyu's skill 3, and more. Even if you are not a cleaver, Frida may still have some value to you as a turn 2 player. By taking Frida early in the draft and Bellion under your ban pick protection slot, you can counter some cleavers' strategies completely outright. Next up, we move on to Midnight Gala Lilias. Lilias is, in my opinion, the best pickup in this entire tier if you are unsure of what to take and you have everything in the S tier. While her PvP viability has taken a hit, she's still a worthwhile tank buster for players that build her lightning fast on Torrent set gear. She's still good in PvP, just a lot harder to use. That said, her PvE viability over the last year has risen tremendously, being one of the best in slot options for Nightmare raid teams as well as Ancient Inheritance. With Trial of the Constellations around the corner, it is very possible that Lilias could be one of the best characters in the entire game in that mode, so she is definitely one to consider. And finally, to round out this tier, we come to Ocean Breeze Luluca. A year and change ago, Ocean Breeze Luluca would have been considered the best support in all of Epic 7. Unfortunately, the releases of Laia and Seafan Hippolytus put a stop to that, and it hasn't gotten too much better with things like New Moon Luna. That said, Ocean Breeze Luluca can still be a surprisingly effective cleanser to combat faster teams with the right build and picked later on in the draft. On top of that, she makes for a pretty solid general use support in certain PvE content, and that might also expand to the new trial mode coming with this patch. Next up is the B tier. These are characters I think that you could find one strong use case for. They're not entirely useless. They do have some value for your account, starting with Byblis. As it stands, Byblis is an excellent substitute for Green Rwana for things like Nightmare Raid Queen, and that's honestly the only time you really see her. That said, being a replacement for Green Rwana still makes her one of the potentially better characters that you can have in your wings for PvE bosses. If Trial of the Constellations has a lot of counter-based bosses in it, well then Byblis' value could skyrocket. Otherwise, she's pretty much just relegated to Nightmare Queen thanks to Mort completely shutting off her PvP viability. Next up, we come to Festive Eda. We've talked about Eda in other videos recently. She lands here because of her synergy with Guide to a Decision, which makes her a hard counter to openers who only strip 2 buffs on their skill 3 opening move. Basically, since she starts in stealth, if you give her barrier from Guide and immunity from the immunity set, she will start with 3 buffs. When the enemy goes to use their 2 buff strip, she won't get pushed back at the start of the fight because they will instead strip the stealth and the barrier, leaving her with immunity. This means that she will be revealed, which procs her passive at the start of her turn, allowing you to dump a load of debuffs on a cleave player and swing the game back in your favor. That's all Eda's really got going for her. Likewise, we move on to Holiday Yufine. She functions pretty much exactly the same way as Festive Eda, only instead of having 3 buffs at the start, you have 2 on Guide to a Decision and immunity set, and then her passive makes it so that she can't be pushed back. Then you use your skill 3, which is basically just Closer Charles S3, but cleanses debuffs, and proceed to pick up the game from there. After Yufine comes her older sister, Luna, who is my favorite character on the entire tier list, so I am a bit biased on what I'm about to say. For my Luna fans out there who are watching this, please do not hate me, by the way, for having her in the B tier. Luna, despite being the poster child of E7, feels like she's oftentimes forgotten by the devs, and I feel like since her ML version is so strong currently, they have zero desire to give this character the love and buffs that she deserves. That said, Luna is still a very powerful blue single target DPS that is capable of more than most of the player base thinks. She's never the best in slot option, but she's always one of the most competitive options for most PvE game modes, usually beat out by none other than the channel's meme girl, Commander Lorena. If Lorena isn't viable or usable in certain areas, well then Luna's value rises spectacularly and she might actually be the best in slot option. Hell, I actually use this character in PvP from time to time and have a decent amount of success. Then again, like I said, I am biased. Point is, for one good use case is what you make of it. For me, that's going to be a niche PvP bruiser. For you, that might be an expedition character, a guild war character, a hunt character, or something else. And finally, we come to Summertime Iseria. With the changes coming in the Origin patch to Battle Frenzy, Iseria's damage is about to get a whole lot higher for PvP, which may make her a viable cleave option now, especially because she does have that exclusive equipment that she got some months back as well. You build her around an AoE composition to trigger her S2 passive to plant bombs, and then detonate them all with her skill 3. Pretty basic gameplay loop. The one caveat to picking Iseria is that you must have her limited artifact, Star of the Deep Sea, or she's basically worthless, which is another knock against her and why she lands here. If you don't have her artifact, you are locked into taking Star of the Deep Sea with your limited selector if you actually want Iseria. Moving on to the last tier, or the second to last tier, depending on how you want to view it, because, well, the last tier is actually just a bunch of characters that you can't choose that we'll talk about in case they are somehow available. So this is kinda like it's the last tier. Anyways, this is the hard to recommend in most places tier, and we'll start with Ahmed. I'll keep this short and simple. Frida is just a better Ahmed in almost every single scenario for PvP. Diene is just a better Ahmed in almost every single scenario for PvE. So the only reason to take Ahmed is if you already have everybody we've talked about on this tier list, right? And you think she looks really cool. But otherwise, you're better off taking either Frida or Diene in nearly every single scenario. After Ahmed, we come to Cerise. She's only really used in expeditions, and even then, she's not necessarily the best in slot option. For PvP, almost every single meta opener outclasses her, and even several of the non-meta ones as well. Her dual attack clause is useful on her S1, but it is conditional based on her S3 being off cooldown, and there's so many other more reliable options than her if you just wanted a dual attack enabler. After Cerise, we come to Fairytale Tenebria. Compared to most of the control mages and rangers of today, Fairytale Tenebria just doesn't really stack up. She just doesn't feel like she contributes much of anything. I suspect her value will be really high in Lunatic Draft when most of the game's best characters are banned, but unless you're playing that gameplay mode, there's almost always a better debuffer, almost always a better option. After Fairytale Tenebria, we come to Lethe, and this one really pains me. Lethe was my favorite character to play in 2023 and early 2024, but she's just not a good character right now. As long as Death Dealer Ray and Urban Shadow Shu exist in the form that they do, this character does nothing, in my opinion. And that includes her buffs, right? Even after her buffs, I just don't see this character doing anything. She's just not usable. And the character also, by the way, has no value in PvE. I hope I'm wrong, right, about Lethe. Maybe her buffs do change things with this patch, but aside from her giant glowing personalities, I can't really find much value in this character, much reason for why you'd want to take her. And then lastly, we come to Summerbreak Charlotte. Charlotte is probably the character on this tier list I understand the least about. So I'm fully expecting her to show up as this super broken Trial of the Constellations hero, and everyone can laugh at me in the comment section about how wrong I was. The character is a guaranteed dual attacking DPS knight that has an AoE defense break. Sometimes cleavers use her, but I never see her win. And other than that, the character feels like she doesn't do anything. I've seen people try her as a tank. I've seen people try her as a cleave anchor. I've seen people use her as a lifesteal DPS bruiser. All of that. And it feels like she never contributes to anything meaningful. I'm serious. I don't even know, what does this character even do? Please tell me down in the comments section below. To round out the video, we're going to talk about the 3 characters that I'm assuming that you actually can't choose, but for whatever reason, they are all selectable, and they all go straight into the S tier, right up there with Diene and Laia. Let's get it started by talking about Afternoon Soak Flan first. I'll keep saying it as many times as it bears repetition. Flan is a catastrophe of game design. 100% dodge, guaranteed dual attack chance, defense break, CR push for the team, stuns, absurd damage, good on speed set, good on lifesteal set, good on counter set, good in nearly every single game mode you could think of. The character is absurdly hard to counter, and the few counters that do exist for her, you could just put her on Guiding Light and like more than half of those go away outright. It really feels like when they designed this character, they broke the entire balance of the game just so they could sell us a big boobed girl in a kimono. After Flan, let's talk about Tori. When Tori was first shown, my reaction was, undispellable buffs? Thanks. I hate it. After seeing Tori's side story on stream and seeing how people were using her, I thought, you know what? Maybe I don't hate her. Maybe I was wrong about this character. Fast forward to the end of the spring 2025 season, and Tori is one of, if not the best DPS you can draft right now in terms of win rate and flexibility. She might even be stronger than Afternoon Soak Flan at this point. And this is before we talk about the fact that Battle Frenzy this season heavily benefits her. Her Cascade is getting buffed in this patch, and Fallen Cecilia's buffs provide her with a perfect teammate that counters a lot of her bad matchups. Undispellable buffs make it very difficult to deal with her. The item level 27 helmet builds that are on counter set also make her nearly unkillable. Barrier Inversion feels like it's the only reliable way to deal with this newest problem child DPS, and there's only 2 characters in the game that do that. A limited that isn't ever coming back, and a specific Moonlight 5-star hero that has bad stats that most players can't build with enough bulk to survive a turn before Tori deletes him from the game. In short, Tori is broken right now. She's only going to get worse in the coming months. And then finally, to round out the video here, we have young Senya. Young Senya has all the makings of a good Soul Weaver for PvE content, while also being powerful in PvP for turn 2. She has CR pushes, a guaranteed dual attack, healing, full team cleanse, and she synergizes incredibly well with most Soul Weaver artifacts. On top of that, she's a hard counter to the most pick/banned character in the entire game in Harsetti. Harsetti basically appears everywhere in PvP, so I feel like if you're going to be dipping your toes at all into any PvP game mode, you will want the most reliable hard counter to her. Nothing much else to say about young Senya. She's just an incredibly well-rounded unit that works nearly everywhere. And those are my thoughts on the limited characters that you could take with your selector ticket for the E7 Origin update. If you have any questions about the characters or you just disagree with anything I have to say, as always, let me know down in the comments section below. And make sure that you check out my limited 5-star artifact tier list, which should be coming in about a day or so from when this video releases. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later now.